Steel Dynamics Pittsboro is committed and dedicated to providing a safe workplace for all employees, contractors, subcontractors, and other third-party employees, and believes that injuries and illnesses are preventable and that an accident-free environment is attainable. In order to achieve an accident-free environment, safety shall be the number one priority of all contractors while performing work for SDI. Contractors are responsible for communicating and strictly adhering to the rules, regulations, and safe work practices set forth by SDI. Safety shall not be sacrificed in lieu of schedule, cost, production, or any other component of the work process. This goal serves the best interest of SDI, the general public, and all contract services and employees. Contractor employees who carry out work at SDI are required to view and understand the SDI Contractor Safety Orientation video in addition to the guidelines and policies set forth in the SDI Contractor Safety Program. Training shall occur prior to beginning work and then on an annual basis or as required for outages, new construction projects, or any other non-routine work that may take place to ensure each contracting company is familiar with the most recent safety requirements. Contractors shall have a company representative obtain the SDI Contractor Safety Program and related materials. It will then become the responsibility of the contractor's site safety representative to orient each and every contractor employee, including subcontractors, prior to the commencement of work on site. Orientation shall include viewing the SDI Contractor Safety Orientation video and reviewing the guidelines set forth in the program that are specific to the SDI job site and steel industry. Documentation of receiving adequate and proper safety training and orientation for all employees is mandatory. Contractors are required to train their employees on the conditions and safety hazards that apply at the SDI project prior to commencement of work activities. This includes all local, state, or federal regulations that apply. Contractors with non-English speaking personnel must provide bilingual safety training so these employees are aware of the procedures and hazards they may face on the job. Before starting work in any area, a daily safety briefing must be conducted where you must contact the SDI Inc. person for whom the contractor is doing work, hereinafter referred to as your SDI contact, for specific instructions concerning operating hazards and safety regulations particular to that area. Contractor supervision will be responsible for communicating specific instructions concerning operating hazards and safety regulations to all the contractor's employees. The contractor shall comply with all applicable federal, state, and local safety and health regulations, codes, or laws. Contractors shall not turn on any utility or motor of SDI Inc., hereinafter SDI Inc. shall be referred to as SDI, without the permission of your SDI contact. Taking photographs, whether it be by camera, cell phone, or any other device, is prohibited at SDI without the approval from SDI management. Conduct monthly contractor safety meetings for all in-house contractors. Safety meetings shall occur for special projects, new construction projects, outages, or any other projects as seen fit. If you are ever contacted by OSHA representatives to conduct an inspection on SDI property, you must contact Safety Department or your SDI contact before inspection begins. Repeat, do not start an inspection without contacting SDI. Contractors are responsible for ensuring that the contractor's employees lock out, tag out, try out every piece of equipment on which the contractor's employees are required to perform work, which places an employee in a position of potential injury due to startup or movement of the equipment or material in process. Do not operate, repair, or test any machinery, electrical apparatus, or other equipment unless it is part of your assigned duties. SDI uses red-banded master locks. Contractors must use a different color. SDI personnel will lock out equipment. Each contractor employee working on equipment shall also apply his own lockout devices to the equipment which needs to be locked out. SDI forbids anyone from entering a confined space unless that individual has had confined space training as set out in OSHA's Confined Space Standard at 29 CFR 1910.146. Approval must be obtained from your SDI contact before entry into any confined space located on SDI grounds. Your SDI contact will document the approval for the confined space entry by issuing you a confined space entry permit. The required pre-entry briefing and debriefing session need to be documented on the confined space entry permit. These permits must be returned to your SDI contact when the work is completed. Before a contractor's employee enters confined space, the contractor employee who will enter the confined space, the attendant, the contractor's supervisor, and your SDI contact will meet to discuss the required personal protective equipment and any hazard which could be generated by the work activities in the confined space. After the work has been completed in the confined space, a debriefing session will take place with the contractor employees who entered the confined space, the attendant, the contractor's supervisor, and your SDI contact in attendance. A 4-foot fall protection standard shall be maintained at all SDI facilities for construction, maintenance, production, and all other projects or tasks. The 4-foot rule shall be adhered to in all situations where employees work at a height which has a fall hazard of 4 feet or greater, requiring personnel to be 100% tied off at all times. Equipment, training, and procedures shall conform to current OSHA regulations and ANSI Z359 standards. All contractors, including construction, shall adhere to the ANSI Z359 standards and SDI guidelines. You must also have a fall rescue plan. A critical part of working at heights is having a fall rescue plan in place before starting work. This plan needs to cover what steps will be taken to rescue someone that has fallen and is suspended in their harness. It is also important that any equipment used for rescue is on site and available for use. Many times, the use of a ladder or man lift may be the best option for rescue. Hazards shall be barricaded to stop individuals from unknowingly entering into a hazardous area. Strategic placement of the barrier is a must. Always place the barrier so it is very visible and gives sufficient warning distance from the hazards, 3-foot minimum. Yellow caution tape means you may enter the area after identifying the hazard. Use extreme caution. Red danger tape means do not enter. Keep out. Entering a red danger-taped area is strictly forbidden unless your SDI contact specifically authorizes you to enter the area. Barricade tape is available in the warehouse and/or by contacting your SDI contact. Never leave a known hazard unprotected. Barricade tape must be removed only by the person who placed the tape or by your SDI contact once the hazard has been corrected and the area has been deemed safe. The speed limit in the plant is 10 or 20 miles per hour, depending on where you are in the mill. Weather or other circumstances could exist that would call for lower speeds. The speed limit applies to all vehicles and mobile equipment. Contractors' employees must obey all traffic and warning signs and be alert to vehicular, pedestrian, and railroad movements. No visitor or contractor is to ride on tailgates or on the sides of pickup trucks while on site. Seatbelts must be worn whenever traveling on SDI property. Be attentive to crane sirens, crane positions, and crane movements. Be on the lookout and aware of moving equipment, uneven and slippery floors, removable railings, grading or floor plates, and rotating equipment and conveyors. Cell phones and other mobile devices shall never be used while operating machinery or equipment or while performing work. Full attention shall always be given to the job and its surroundings. Contractors may not enter the bloom yard without approval from their SDI contact. Forklifts are continually operating in this area with limited visibility of smaller vehicles or pedestrians around the blooms. Prior to anyone entering into this area, forklift operators should be contacted on SDI Radio Channel 7 and made aware of the entry into the bloom yard. Contractors are forbidden from riding on locomotives, railroad cars, or other transportation equipment unless it is required for the work being performed and authorized by SDI prior to work. Never go under, over, or work on or near any locomotive, railroad car, or track for any purpose unless required for the work being performed and only after the track is properly protected. Railroad tracks shall be crossed at designated walkways if present. If designated walkways are not present, personnel shall cross tracks at least 25 feet away from the end of a string of rail cars or locomotive. Personnel must always be alert and keep out of danger. Unless required in the performance of the job, workers must remain off and clear of the tracks at all times. Contractor employees must never walk, stand, or drive between rail cars, locomotives, or any transportation equipment unless the units are separated by at least 25 feet. Never step or walk on rails. Always step over them. Railroad track clearance. OSHA requires an 8-foot clearance to be maintained from the center of the track in both directions for the placement or storage of any material or equipment. Never obstruct rail movement. All crossings must be approached with extreme caution. Rail traffic has the right of way at all times. All vehicle and pedestrian traffic shall yield the right of way to rail traffic. Locomotives cannot stop quickly. You must. Rail cars can and do occasionally block crossings. Vehicles shall never leave roadway or designated crossings to get around rail cars. Rail cars can be pushed or pulled on tracks, causing train lights to appear farther than what they seem. You must stop. Never try to beat a train. If a signal light is flashing or the train is moving and visible, all vehicles shall wait for train to pass before crossing. Never stop on railroad tracks. Contractor employees must obey all rail crossing signals, including other warning and traffic signs. Failure to do so can result in dismissal from site. Note that some SDI facilities have significant different signage or protocols for stopping at tracks or when rail cars and locomotives are in motion due to logistics or rail line orientation or location. Extra caution shall always be used at rail crossings. Be certain that railroad tracks or roadways are clear of rail cars or vehicles before crossing. Stop, look, and listen. Rail stops or derailers and warning flags must be used during repairs or other work on or near rail lines. Only authorized users who place the safety device or warning sign shall be able to remove such device or sign. Site-specific rail safety procedures must be adhered to at all times. Refer to SDI Safety Department for specific safety procedures. Railroad tracks must be locked out when working within 8 feet of the tracks or on them. Reflective vests shall be worn by contractors working on or near railroad tracks. Stop, look, and listen before crossing tracks or roads where there may be moving equipment. Vehicles are not to cross tracks when rail equipment is approaching. Never climb on rail equipment under any circumstance. Contractor's employees shall not operate any equipment other than that belonging to the contractor unless authorized by your SDI contact. When work is to be performed on machinery or equipment that can be placed in operation, SDI's standard lockout procedure is to be followed. Lockout of SDI equipment or power source is to be done by SDI personnel and with SDI's lockout devices. Each contractor employee working on equipment shall also apply his own lockout device. Contractors shall ensure that the equipment is in zero mechanical state before the work proceeds. When equipment is not in use, it must be positioned where it will not foul railroad tracks, highways, walkways, or temporary passageways. All equipment not in use must be secured so as to prevent movement or operation. Where necessary, contractors shall barricade the area or provide a watchman for the protection of individuals working in the area. Any moving machine parts, functions, or processes that may cause injury must be safeguarded. Hazards created by moving parts must be either controlled or eliminated in order to prevent accidental contact or protect one from placing a limb or a body part where injury can occur. Contractors shall be responsible for ensuring that mobile equipment brought on site has current documented inspections and that the operators have been trained to operate the equipment. Training records shall be documented and kept for SDI review if requested. Good housekeeping must be maintained at all times. Materials must be piled so that safe clearances are maintained and toppling is prevented. Loose overhead material must be removed. Garbage must be disposed of. Oil and water spillage must be removed. Nails protruding from lumber shall be removed or bent over. Lumber shall be piled in a neat and safe manner. The contractor's job is not complete until all debris and leftovers have been removed. Safety tees shall be used on all lines to cut off vacuum and shall be within reach of the worker at the end of the line. Safety tees do not have to be used if the driver of the truck or other trained personnel is at the controls that turn the vacuum on and off and is in line of sight with the worker at the end of the line. If a vacuum truck is needed for cleanup of a hazardous material or contaminated area, only contractors with proper training for cleaning such a spill or contaminated area shall participate in the cleanup. Contractors shall provide for treatment of their sick or injured employees. Contractors must instruct their employees to contact the guardhouse on radio channel 1 or dial 2160 from a mill phone in case of an emergency. All bodily fluids shall be considered potentially infectious materials. In order to reduce or minimize employee exposure to bloodborne pathogens, administrative controls shall be implemented, such as proper utilization of PPE, proper handling of sharps and contaminated wastes. Contaminated equipment must be decontaminated or discarded in biohaz bags and disposed of properly, and accessible hand-washing facilities. Prior to the start of each workday, the contractor's supervision shall communicate to employees the scope of work to be performed and all pertinent safety precautions necessary. All injuries must be immediately reported to your SDI contact. Any accident or near miss involving injury to a contractor's employee or property damage requires a formal report to be prepared by the contractor's supervision. This must be submitted to the safety department within 48 hours of the occurrence of the injury. No individual shall operate a crane unless he is authorized to do so by your SDI contact. Before receiving authorization to operate a crane, all individuals must receive proper training and be familiar with the crane's controls, working area, and the type of material to be handled. An SDI crane interference permit shall be completed and adhered to at all times if work is being done within the crane's path, also known as the crane envelope. Contractors shall always have approval from SDI management prior to work being performed within the crane envelope. Prior to doing any work on or near cranes or crane runways, the contractor must first make arrangements with your SDI contact. When an individual is getting on or off a crane, he shall use only the regular designated stairways, ladders, or crane approaches. When a contractor has been given authorization to operate a crane and is in control of the crane, he is responsible for ensuring that all lifting devices or attachments and the crane itself have been inspected prior to use. Crane interference warning signs and permits shall be strictly adhered to at all times. Failure to do so is extremely dangerous and can cause serious injury and will result in disciplinary action. The crane operator shall respond only to signals from the person who is directing the lift, with the exception of when the stop signal is given. The operator must acknowledge the stop signal no matter who gives it. The signalman shall always be in radio and/or visual communication with the crane operator. Always maintain a safe distance from an elevated load. Never walk or work under a load, or come within 10 feet of a suspended load. Lifting fixtures, such as C-hooks, are considered suspended loads as well. Use no-touch tools or taglines if necessary. Know your area. Identify all potential hazards and potential pinch point areas. Contractors must coordinate their activities with SDI in the following manner. Before raising, telescoping, lowering, or swinging the boom on any aerial lift, the areas below, above, and alongside must be clear of all obstructions and personnel. If adequate clearance cannot be ensured when operating aerial lifts, the contractor must communicate with the SDI contact to establish a safe work procedure. The contractor must ensure that its employees are trained in the safe operation of aerial lifts. Operators must be trained to obey all warnings, signals, cautions, and operating instructions posted on the machines. The manufacturer's recommended maximum number of users and maximum capacity for the platform shall never be exceeded. All manufacturer specifications shall be adhered to. Contractors are required to wear a full body harness with a fall restraint lanyard, or SRL, that shall be tied off to the designated anchorage points on the platform while operating or working from an aerial lift, including scissor lifts. Fall protection is required at all times when work is performed from an aerial or scissor lift. There are 3 anchorage or lanyard options allowed on site for tying off in the basket. The use of a self-retracting lifeline, commonly referred to as an SRL, a 4-foot fixed-length lanyard, or an adjustable-length shock-absorbing lanyard adjusted to the shortest length. All 3 tie-off options are designed to keep the operator inside the basket while working or traveling in the man or scissor lift. Work shall always be done when standing with both feet on the platform floor. Materials and tools shall be located in the basket. If materials stick out of the basket, then proper means of securing the material shall be followed which meets the manufacturer's specifications. Controls should be operated with a smooth, low, and even pressure. Hesitation or uneven response of controls should be reported immediately to your supervisor, and the operation should be stopped. Safe clearance must be obtained from all electrical lines, collector rails, and hot rails. When traveling in an aerial lift, the basket shall be as low to the ground as possible. Do not use the boom or platform of an aerial lift as a crane to lift any load. Do not operate aerial lifts in high wind situations, with wind exceeding 20 mph or per the manufacturer's specifications. Contractors performing work at a Steel Dynamics location must provide a complete list and copies of safety data sheets, or SDSs, of all substances or chemicals brought onto the SDI site. Chemicals shall only be brought on site after SDI approval. Contractors and their employees have the right to know about any hazards that may be present around the job site. Because of the diverse and harsh environment of the steel industry, it is imperative that all workers have access to SDSs and any other documentation that has pertinent information regarding chemicals and their serious hazards. It is the contractor's responsibility to communicate with their employees the information given during the Safety and Right to Know session in the SDI Contractor Safety Orientation. In conjunction, SDI reserves the right to obtain a copy of the contractor's HAZCOM program and copies of training from contractors who bring chemicals onto SDI's facility. The contractor shall observe the following fire prevention and control regulations. Temporary buildings erected or placed on SDI's property by the contractor shall be of non-combustible or fire-resistant materials and shall be located and erected only after approval of your SDI contact. Each temporary building, trailer, and other shelter shall be equipped with fire extinguishers. Heating for temporary buildings shall be operated by electricity, natural gas, steam, oil, or other types of fuels approved by the SDI Manager, Environmental Health and Safety, hereinafter referred to as Safety Manager, and shall be a type acceptable to SDI. Gasoline, coal, liquid petroleum gas, wood-fired stoves, or coke salamanders will not be permitted inside temporary buildings. Open fires are prohibited. Heaters used for providing heat for outdoor areas shall be properly safeguarded and fuel used shall be approved by the safety manager. Gas heaters, sometimes called salamanders, shall be equipped with a complete steel guardrail having a radial clearance of at least 12 inches. Gas heaters shall be kept at least 10 feet from combustible materials. Closed containers shall be used for storing and handling combustible liquids in accord with acceptable OSHA Regulation 1910.106. Containers shall be identified with markings indicating the contents must be stored either outside or in a flammable storage cabinet. Dispensing equipment shall be locked when not in use. If requested by SDI, dispensing equipment shall be removed. When liquids with flash points below 100 degrees Fahrenheit are present, the following, in addition to the requirements previously stated, applies. Containers shall be equipped with relief venting, adequate grounding, and approved flame arresters at the vent and pouring spout. Any exception must be approved by your SDI contact. When work is to be done in critical fire hazard areas as designated by SDI, a special fire prevention meeting shall be held with the appropriate SDI personnel, your SDI contact, operating and maintenance supervision, and the safety department. The purpose of this meeting will be to discuss the potential hazards and precautionary measures to be instituted by the contractor. Do not park or store equipment within 15 feet of a fire hydrant. Your SDI contact must approve the area in which burning or welding is to occur before any burning or welding is done. Your SDI contact will document the approval for the welding or burning by issuing a hot work permit. These permits must be returned to your SDI contact when the work is completed. Before burning or welding operations begin, the contractor must take precautions to prevent fires, such as removal of combustibles, watering combustible dusts, providing a fire watch, making ample firefighting equipment available, and checking combustible gas or vapor concentrations. Oxygen and gas cylinders shall be returned promptly to a storage area after use. Protective caps shall be placed over the cylinder valves when being transported and when the cylinders are not in use. Oxygen and gas cylinders shall be kept away from heat, fire, molten metal, or electrical lines and shall not be transported unless a special holder or carrier is used. When used in a special carrier or truck, there must be a rigid partition between the oxygen and gas cylinder. The partition must extend to a point above the top of the higher cylinder. Oxygen and gas cylinders, when not in carriers, shall be kept at least 6 feet apart unless separated by a rigid partition. Cylinders shall be secured in an upright position to some stationary object or structure and protected from accidental damage. Contractors who bring chemicals designated as hazardous by OSHA, EPA, or DOT into a work area must provide the safety manager with safety data sheets on each chemical prior to initiating work. All unused materials must be removed upon completion of work. All containers must be labeled in accordance with OSHA, DOT, and other regulatory requirements. Contractor supervision must ensure chemicals are used in such a manner as to minimize employee exposure. At no time is the contractor permitted to create atmospheres that exceed permissible exposure limits in areas where SDI employees may be exposed. Before going on any roof or top of storage tank, the contractor shall first contact your SDI contact. When working overhead, the area below shall be roped off or other equivalent measures shall be taken to protect workers in the area. When necessary, the contractor shall assign an employee to warn persons entering the work area. Ladders shall meet all OSHA regulations and ANSI standards. Ladders shall be visually inspected before each use for deficiencies. Ladder rails shall be constructed of non-conductive material such as fiberglass. Wood ladders are not allowed to be used on site. Do not use ladders with missing or broken rungs or split side rails. Defective ladders must be tagged and removed from the job site immediately. Ladders shall not be placed in any location where they could be struck, such as passageways, stairs, aisles, elevated walkways, doorways, or driveways. If a ladder is in a congested area, proper barricading is required to prevent accidental displacement. Ladders shall not be loaded beyond the maximum intended load and shall be used only for the purpose for which they were designed. If working at or above 4 feet on any ladder, The user or worker shall use fall protection or find alternative means of access, such as an aerial lift. If the latter is being used for access reasons only, then fall protection is not required as long as the user continues to climb and not stop to perform work. Always keep 3 points of contact with ladder: 2 feet and 1 hand, or 2 hands and 1 foot. The ladder shall be positioned so that work is always done facing the ladder. Never allow your belt buckle to pass beyond either ladder rail. Never work leaning to the side or turned around on any ladder. Move ladders from the ground if necessary to gain additional reach from side to side. Do not move with personnel on the equipment. Storage of ladders shall be in a designated location to avoid damage and excessive wear. Scaffolding and its components shall be capable of supporting, without failure, at least 4 times the maximum intended load. Scaffolding shall be free from apparent defects that would impair the structural strength and integrity. The footing or anchorage for scaffolds shall be sound, rigid, and capable of carrying the maximum intended load without settling or displacement. Scaffolding 4 feet or greater in height must be equipped with handrails, mid-rails, and toe boards if there is a possibility of tools and materials falling or personnel working or walking below, and shall be tightly planked on all open sides and ends. All scaffolding boards and decking are to be cleated on each end to ensure mobility. Scaffold planking and decking shall be of scaffold-grade materials. Use only an access or climbing ladder, access steps, frame designed to be climbed, or equivalent approved means to climb a scaffold. Climbing the side of scaffolding or the bracing is not permitted. All scaffolding components shall be compatible. Scaffolds, frames, and their components of various manufacturers shall not be intermixed. When a contractor is authorized to use compressed air supplied by SDI, the points of connections must be approved by your SDI contact. Do not attach air lines to any drops that are not marked as compressed air. Contractors are forbidden from using piped oxygen or other compressed gases in place of compressed air. All pressure vessels, such as compressed air receivers, air compressors, and boilers belonging to the contractor, shall comply with applicable pressure vessel codes. The following rules are intended to provide guidance in the basic concepts and techniques of electrical safety. These rules offer an overview of OSHA's electrical standard for safety related to work practices for employees who face a risk of electric shock as set out in Subpart S to 29 CFR 1910. When you are unsure of the particular course of action, you should safely secure your work area and report your problem to your SDI contact. SDI allows only qualified persons to do electrical-related work. OSHA defines a qualified person as a person who has the training in avoiding the electrical hazards of working on or near exposed energized parts, is familiar with the construction and operation of the equipment and hazard involved with the job, meets requirements by job status, and has been NFPA 70E trained through an outside accredited electrical specialist. Portable electric equipment and flexible electrical cords. Portable equipment must be handled in a manner that will not cause damage. Flexible electric cords connected to equipment may not be used to suspend or carry the equipment. Flexible cords may not be fastened with staples or otherwise hung in such a fashion that could damage the outer jacket or insulation. Flexible electric cords must not be run through wall openings. Door openings are okay if cords are protected. Flexible electric cords must not be repaired with tape or other unapproved means. Visually inspect portable cord and plug connections and flexible cord connections before every use. Ground fault circuit interrupters, GFCIs, must be used with all extension cords and portable tools. If work is to be performed on or within 10 feet of power lines, the contractor must first confer with your SDI contact. After your conference with your SDI contact, SDI will make the necessary arrangements for turning off or turning back on electrical power. SDI electrical supervision will check locations where work is to be done and advise the contractor on safe procedure and equipment, and if considered necessary, assign a qualified employee to the area to ensure that SDI's power line equipment is not damaged or that service is not interrupted. Work on electrical equipment shall be conducted in accordance with all pertinent safety rules. Lockout, tagout, tryout procedures must be followed. Before any excavating is started, the contractor will check with your SDI contact for all known underground utilities, such as conduit, pipelines, and tanks. You must obtain permission from your SDI contact before any temporary or permanent connection or disconnection is performed. The contractor shall provide all necessary sheeting, shoring, or bracing as may be required for safe operation in accordance with federal and state regulations. Excavations must be guarded with railings and barricades of substantial construction. For example, can withstand 200 pounds of force, and shall be erected by the contractor. Lanterns or other illuminated warning devices must be in place at night. Procedures have been developed to ensure we work safely and prevent the contamination of the environment, our land, water, and air. If you have any questions regarding environmental aspects in your work areas, please contact your designated facility contact or the SDI Environmental Department. All contractors must ensure that any solid or liquid wastes, debris, hazardous wastes, or hazardous substances are disposed of in the proper containers in compliance with current governmental regulations and SDI requirements. Containers for routine waste disposal and recycling are color-coded throughout the facility. Discharges of any material, except rainwater, to the outside stormwater drains are prohibited. Roadways and outside areas must be kept clean. It is the visiting construction contractor's responsibility to install stormwater control measures such as silt fences and straw bales to control solids from entering storm drains. All material piles must be controlled to prevent solids from entering storm drains. All contractors are required to contact security if they become aware of any accident, safety issue, or emergency. Environmental incidents such as any spill, air release, and improper waste segregations should be reported to security or directly to the Environmental Department. If, during the performance of any work, contractor purchases, leases, rents, borrows without charge, or otherwise obtains possession of any of SDI's machinery, equipment, or tools, the contractor shall indemnify and hold SDI harmless from any liability of any kind arising out of the possession, maintenance, use, operation, and/or failure of said machinery, equipment, or tools, whether defective or not. The contractor shall sign a receipt indicating that such is in good working order. If SDI's equipment becomes damaged while in the possession of the contractor, he shall have such equipment repaired to SDI's satisfaction in the manner designated by SDI. Smoking is prohibited in all enclosed facilities within SDI Inc. This includes common work areas, training rooms, conference and meeting rooms, private offices, hallways, employee lunch areas of break areas, stairways, restrooms, vehicles, and all other enclosed facilities such as mills, warehouses, and production areas. Smoking cannot occur at a distance of 8 feet or less outside any entrance, exit, or ventilation units of any enclosed areas where smoking is prohibited. This is to ensure that tobacco smoke does not enter the area through entrances, windows, ventilation systems, or by any other means. SDI is committed to providing a safe, drug-free workplace. Therefore, SDI prohibits on company property the manufacturing, distribution, possession, use, or being under the influence of a controlled substance or alcohol. Violation of this policy will result in immediate removal from the site. SDI requires all contractors to have a drug program in place. SDI is committed to a work environment in which all individuals are treated with respect and dignity. As such, SDI prohibits on its property discrimination against SDI employees, including discrimination in the form of harassment on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, age, disability, marital status, citizenship, or other characteristic protected by law. Offenders of this prohibition will be immediately removed from the property. If you become aware of a violation of this policy, contact your SDI contact immediately. SDI prohibits on its property acts of violence, threats, or other potentially violent behavior. Anyone who violates this policy will be removed from the property. If you become aware of a violation of this policy, immediately contact your SDI contact or the safety manager. After testing of magnetic fields within the mill, the following areas should not be entered by any person wearing a cardiac pacemaker due to possible interference: LMF, EAF, bar finish, and caster decks. Steel Dynamics places great value on the service that you provide as a contractor employee. Although the work that you do is important, your health and safety is our first concern. Your work practices can affect not only your safety and that of your coworkers, but also the safety of SDI employees. We ask that you make safety your primary focus while working in our facility. Do not hesitate to contact your SDI representative if you have questions or concerns that involve your safety or the safety of others in our plant. Thank you for your individual effort in helping us achieve a safer workplace.